Hi, Coach Robert here. I'm the author of They're Never Out of Your League, What I Learned About Beautiful Women as a Playboy Executive. And you can get that book on Amazon right now. That goes further in depth on what we're going to talk about today. So, as an executive at Playboy, my daily job was to figure out what men wanted and what women needed. And throughout those years, I met some of the most beautiful women in the world who came through the doors and got to see how the dynamic plays out between men and women on a first-hand basis. So we're going to talk about all of this today. How to get beautiful women into your life, what makes them special, what makes them unique, what makes them dangerous, and why we're so petrified of them. And a lot of guys really are. I guess the first thing we need to understand is how they got to be these kind of creatures where we just think they're from another planet. They seem aloof, they seem bitchy, they seem indifferent. And we're always thinking, well, they must have a handsome boyfriend, a rich boyfriend. But that's not always the case. I mean, it is in some respects, but it's not always the case. And in most cases, that's not the deal. They will date regular guys. Sometimes they prefer regular, everyday guys who are authentic. But you got to be authentic. That's the whole deal. You got to be who you are and come to the table with your own masculinity, your own lack of neediness, lack of validation, no attachment to outcome. That's what you really need, and that's what girls feel. That's a palpable thing. Getting back to what kind of made them the way they are, and they are gorgeous creatures, we know that, and just pure luck of their DNA made them beautiful. But think about when they were little kids. I mean, they were little girls, they were beautiful. They were always special. Oh, they got what they wanted. They were the first girls in the birthday party to sing. Everybody made a fuss about them. Daddy's girl. She's so special, special, special. And they grew up with this sense of entitlement, even as little kids, as children. And then when boys started paying attention to them, the boys would really make a big fuss. Oh, that girl is so cute. I really like her. And that went on and on. In grade school, the teachers loved them. They got to be the special princesses. And then throughout probably the last 3 or 4 decades, they were fed with this girl power idea from their parents that girls just have anything they want just by virtue of being girls. And then when you add the beauty on top of that, they got this sense of entitlement that's through the roof. So then let's fast forward a little bit. And so now these girls are in high school. They become the cheerleaders. They become the prom queens. They become the heads of social gatherings. And often they become the mean girls. They're glorified. And every other girl in school wants to be like them. So they have this sense that we are the shit. We're just, because we're so gorgeous, we can do anything. And it's almost like, guys who are captains of the football team, they may not be the brightest guys in some cases, but they're athletes, so they get a pass. They have some privilege there. So these girls had that beauty privilege. This sense of entitlement then even increases more as they get into the real world. They beat speeding tickets. They get the better jobs. They get to be social butterflies because everyone wants to be around them. All the men want to date them. They want to have them at parties because they draw other people. And the entitlement then escalates even more. So they're this hot commodity of gorgeous girl. But what we forget is these girls rarely felt rejection in the truest sense. They weren't the fat girls when they were young, the fat, ugly girls. Or they weren't being left out on dates. They got dates easily. They had boyfriends lined up, and often they would just reject them out of hand. Well, I don't like him as much anymore. I don't like the way he looks. I don't like his car. I don't like this. I don't like that. And they would reject them. And this even went further as the online world kicked in, and social media and online dating, when you could just swipe left or right. That gave them real latitude to have whatever they want. So you add all of these things together, And beautiful women have become the most desirable thing on the planet. Desirable, yes, but also very dangerous. And there's a big reason that a lot of guys just miss about this whole thing. Because these women, as when they were young and paid attention to constantly, were never rejected, as we talked about before. What that created was a lack of empathy in them. They don't have the empathy. They don't have that feeling like, oh man, that feels really bad. If I do that, I'm going to feel bad. Those people feel bad. They haven't sensed it very much. They may have a little bit, but they don't get that real feeling of angst and crushing, soul crushing, you know, bad feelings that we get when we're rejected and we're thrown aside and we're not liked. They just don't understand it. So they will, toss people aside without thinking twice. They think, well, it's no big deal. They'll get over it. Especially guys. Especially guys. They say, oh, guys don't care. Guys just want to get laid. They don't care about. So if I don't like them, I'm just going to reject them. But they don't understand the emotions that we have as well. And sometimes we're worse than they are. We are the romantics. They aren't. So that's a fact. So it may not even be their fault that we consider them bitches. Okay? That's the common phrase that we'll give a girl who acts like that with no sense of guilt or feeling bad for someone, no empathy. We call them bitches, and they just may not even know because they haven't felt it. But when we can pierce that veil and understand where they're coming from, it serves us well. What causes us to be so afraid of them? Why are they dangerous to us? Why do we shake and have sweaty palms and our knees shake when we go to approach them? And I'm talking about regular guys. I mean, even really handsome guys and rich guys, they're in the same boat. I've seen it firsthand. But why is that? What makes them so unique? What makes them these unicorns? Well, the big issue, fellas, is we conflate the idea of their beauty with our handsomeness. Let me explain. We think because they're so gorgeous, they want gorgeous, handsome men. And yeah, physical looks may be important initially, but not always. And they're not thinking that way. We, as visual creatures, men are visual creatures. Everything is, we're looking at their tits and ass, and that's it. We couldn't care less what their career is, how much money they make, what their aspirations are, what businesses they're in. We really don't care that much. But if they're gorgeous, we get entrapped. We go into this world of pure bliss when we see a gorgeous girl, especially if she's ticking off all the boxes that we're predetermined to like. And that usually stems from when we were little kids, our teachers or mom's friends. We have this built-in erotic schematic that gives us the idea of just the kind of girl we want. So when we see that gorgeous creature, that smoke show, that hottie, we just naturally say, wow, I gotta possess her. But women don't think like that. They have a detective agency. They look at everything about us. They look at how we dress, how we look, and that's somewhat important. But they field questions like, do you like animals? And would he be caring? Would he be protective? There are certain things that beautiful women want more than anything, and any woman actually wants more than anything, and that's security. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So they're starting to question us, and we don't even know it sometimes because all we see is gorgeous girl, and we don't kind of think about what they're really seeking. We just think they want handsome, rich guys. And if we're not handsome and rich, that lets us out. Well, that's so wrong. And I'm living proof. And I know many other guys who are living proof that that's just not the case. What stops us in our tracks is that fear of walking up to them and saying, you know what? I think you're the hottest thing on the planet. Or just saying, my name is so-and-so. I want to get to know you. And if we get shot down, we get shot down. And that's it. Really, what is a 118-pound girl going to do to you, right? It's going to hurt your feelings? Well, maybe. But if you become immune to that, you have a shot with them. Well, it's the ability to be unimpressed by a woman's beauty that will get her in your life, and that's a superpower. I call that one of my favorite words is the action is inure, inure, inure yourself from their beauty. It's to accept something that's undesirable. So it's just kind of put up a screen when you're speaking with a beautiful girl and think about not her as being beautiful, but just as another girl that you want to like her. You don't want to just like her for her beauty. You just want to like her because you think she's interesting. I mean, that's really the first step. If you can block all those ideas of her being gorgeous and she has the greatest body and you're just horny as hell at the time, then you have a real shot. And when you become indifferent to a girl's beauty, she senses that. You then become unneedy, not needy, because she knows that you've been around beautiful women before, and that's attractive to her because that says to her that you've had other women in your life, and that's always a good competitive thing with gorgeous girls. They want to know that they have to compete a little bit for your love. They like that tension. They want to be in that drama. So that's really a good thing. And also ignoring beauty makes you different. Every guy in the world is going to come up to them and say, "You're hot, you're gorgeous, you're the most beautiful girl I ever saw. Yeah, you got beautiful." Well, they've heard it a million times, especially the real smoke shows. I'm talking about the 9s or 10s. They've heard all the lines. And when you don't do that, if you don't slobber over them, they sense that you've got something going on, that you've been there before, you've been with beautiful women before. So they, in turn, must have to do something to impress you. And that's getting a leg up on this whole thing. You don't use words like cute, beautiful, smoking, gorgeous. Instead, say things like, you're quirky or you're intriguing. That sets their mind in motion because the real seduction is in their mind, and that's where you want to be. So where do you meet these girls, and how do you get around them? Well, and the best way is to get a job where there are a lot of beautiful girls working, whatever that may be, in stores and modeling agencies, a photographer, wherever beautiful women will gravitate to. If you can get in a position where you're telling these girls what to do on a daily basis, that helps you become bulletproof to their beauty. Because you disassociate their beauty with your job, what you have to do. You're saying to yourself, well, I got to explain what they need to do, and what their beauty is irrelevant at this point. And over time, that sinks in. When you supervise a beautiful girl, that neutralizes their impressive aura. It becomes not such a big factor anymore. And it's true, a lot of these hotties will just hopscotch, especially with guys who don't do this, because these guys who are in power and supervising these girls sometimes are just doing it because they want a hot girl, and they'll do everything for her and still get entrapped. So if you don't get entrapped, you're great. You got to realize, men, and this is an old saw, but beauty really is only skin deep. It will fade. Their looks will not mesmerize you later on. And mesmerize is really the right word, because when we see a gorgeous girl, all of these hormones start to flush in, the oxytocin and everything else that we testosterone, we just get blasted with this stuff. In fact, we go into a state that's called limerence, which is tantamount to infatuation. We actually almost fall in love immediately when a gorgeous girl is in our proximity. It's just a natural reaction, again, for us being visual creatures. We want to be around them. We want to possess them. We think of them almost as a prize to win. And we'll do crazy shit to have these girls. You know what I'm talking about. They say women are the romantics. Not necessarily so. Men are the romantics. When men get into that state of limerence, that initial feeling of euphoria, then all we want to do is see her, be with her. We start thinking of marriage and children. And yeah, not all guys. but most. Beauty will do this to us. So being indifferent really works. And if you're having a problem segregating the beauty from a lot of girls, and think they're these goddesses who need to be put on a pedestal, and they're untouchable, and they're like porcelain. Well, let me tell you, you've all been on porn sites. Just go to Pornhub, and you'll see some of the most gorgeous girls in the world doing the nastiest stuff there is. They think just like any other girl. It's just that their beauty puts up the shield. Um, Another thing to do to kind of block this beauty bomb that's shot at you is to every now and then, if you get to the point where you're speaking with one of these girls, drop the age bomb on her. You know, periodically talk about her age in the conversation just to keep her honest, because gorgeous girls understand that their currency is beauty, and there's an expiration date on that beauty. They know at a certain age, they may be 25 now, but when they're 35, they know some other 20-year-old is coming along who's going to blow them out of the water. So they're sensitive to it. So to drop that age bomb every now and then, just subtly, you're 25. Is that too late in your career to get where you want? Subtle insinuations about, you know that their age is big for them. That puts them on guard, and not so much on guard, but that puts them in a state of, well, I got to impress again. So, and that's what you want. They know their youth is fleeting, and they want to hold on to it. Another thing that is really good is what they used to call in the old pickup world spinning plates, and that's dating a lot of girls. When you date a lot of beautiful women at the same time, or even any girl, if you date 4 or 5 and then spin plates at the same time, you're less concentrated on this one girl and how great she is. That's another good thing to do. If you can do it, even if you're not that involved or that excited about dating other girls, and this one gorgeous creature is all you're thinking about, spread yourself out there. Get as many girlfriends as you can, date them, spin plates, and you'll see how the beauty of one will still be prominent, but it'll wane a little bit when you start judging her against the other girls who might be more interesting or actually might be more your type. So consider that. Remember also that what turns you on today may repulse you tomorrow. And those are true words. You probably heard the old saw. You look at a great hot looking girl and somebody will say, well, someone somewhere is sick of fucking her. And it's true. It might be 6 months, it might be 2 years, whatever. But as gorgeous as a girl is, that hormone rush, that horniness, that ultra libidinous situation you find yourself in with a gorgeous girl will wane over time. You must remember that above everything. Other things to remember is hot women usually are always in their feminine. And if you know about polarity at all, you know that a feminine woman and a masculine man will attract. And it's just the law of nature that polarity needs to be there to keep people together. So if a woman is in her masculine and a man's in her masculine, it's going to repulse. It's not going to work. So most beautiful women, by virtue of realizing all their life that beauty, which is a feminine trait, more or less, because it's there to attract men and the male, they understand that they seek and need a man who's masculine, so the polarity works. So they're usually always in their feminine. So you need to be in your masculine. And what does that mean? Well, that means be confident. What does that mean? Okay. That means knowing where to draw the line, knowing yourself enough, the being of yourself enough to be able to stand up for your own ideas, to be able to say no, to be able to love yourself, be able to, again, draw a line in the sand when there's something you don't like, And especially with gorgeous women, so many guys, when they get to the point where they actually are dating a beautiful girl, they'll do anything for her. They'll fawn all over for her, all over her. And she doesn't want that. She wants a romance. She wants to be in an adventure. She doesn't want to be the adventure. She wants to be in the adventure with you. You got to be the leader. So when you're in your male polarity, your masculine polarity, you're leading the whole situation. And that's offering her a sense of security. And security is so important to all women, not just beautiful women, but especially beautiful women. Because think about it, even though some of them aren't hit on very often because they're so beautiful, the times that they are hit upon, it can get scary for them. They don't know what guys are going to do. They don't know about stalkers. They don't know any of this. And beautiful women are, most of them that I knew, playmates and bunnies would go out shopping, not made up at all, in sweats, and trying to look as normal as possible because they didn't want to be hit on. But here's another thing: if you could see through that and recognize what true beauty is, which is another story. True beauty is without makeup, without all the dolled up clothing, without all of the push-up bras, and without any of that. When you can look through all of that and see a girl's real beauty, her shape, her body shape, her hair, her eyes, all of that stuff, that's really a skill that you should try to really become expert in. And the only way to do that is to look at millions of girls, which I know you're doing anyway. Another thing we need to understand is, don't make her your goddess. That's, as I said, guys fawn all over girls, and they just think the more they could please the girl, the more she's going to like them, and that's just comes out of a sense of neediness. That's your attachment to outcome. That's telling you, well, I'm doing this for her because then she's going to love me back. And it just doesn't work. They want a man to be a rock. They want a man to be solid. They want a man to be able to lead. And I don't mean in an asshole way, that, demanding kind of super macho way. But I mean a guy who knows what he wants and doesn't, beat around the bush and say, well, let's go to dinner tonight. Well, where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? No. Pick a place. Say, like, she wants Chinese, and you say, I'd rather Italian. If you can't agree, and say, okay, why don't we get both and take out and come back and eat? So just stand your ground, okay? That's important. They want you to lead. And don't assume that a beautiful girl has a boyfriend, because she may not. We always think, oh, this girl's gorgeous. She must have, 5 boyfriends. Well, again, not necessarily true. A lot of the models, a lot of the Playboy bunnies, a lot of the playmates would have really exclusive relationships, and if they went bad, they had nobody for months and years. And that's because they put all of their eggs in the basket once they're really into a guy. Once they really like him, they will go in full steam. And then they get gun shy, especially if they're hurt by whatever situation. They will get gun shy, and they'll worry about, well, you come along and start, badgering them. So don't assume that they just have guys all over them all the time. They don't. Let me go back a bit. If they are hurt and they're kind of putting their wall up, well, that's going to be tough to penetrate. But it can be done with sincerity and, again, your masculine approach. Never be concerned about speaking your mind, about toxic masculinity or mansplaining or any of that stuff. So if you're afraid to do that, if you're afraid of a girl calling you on this or calling you an anti-feminist or whatever, that she's going to look at you as a pussy, and she's not going to respect you. I mean, you may argue about it, but if you hold your own with a beautiful woman, I'm saying, because she's probably been down this block a lot. If you hold your own with her, she's going to say, this guy's got some balls, even if she doesn't agree with you. And if you get into a situation and you do get rejected, and it happens, embrace the fact that you were rejected. Embrace the fact that you were able to get that far with the beautiful woman, because all rejection does is make you stronger in the next time around. It's just, that's simple logic, and we all know that. It doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And with beautiful women, the more beautiful women you date, the easier it gets for the next beautiful, and then to approach the next beautiful woman or date another beautiful woman, because you start to intuitively know what they're all about. You start to get into their heads. Don't overanalyze why you were rejected. You may have been in a crossroads, or she may have been in a crossroads in the hottie's life that you just don't know. She may have had baggage and years of hurt, and something just didn't jive at the moment when you two kind of separated, broke up, whatever happened, or she dumped you. And just don't get into it in your head and start to blow up her phone and stalk her, because that's just weakness. And hot women know this better than any other woman, because when a guy most guys, and you need to be different, when most guys go all in on a beautiful woman, they go all in, and the girl knows that this guy is head over heels with her. And if the adventure is right, if the romance is right, if the polarity is right, the relationship will be pretty good. So she knows that. But if you start acting weak after the breakup and all, she says, well, he was just another one of the same guys. And your chance of ever getting back with her, if you had any chance, are probably not very good. Again, we can talk about her age a little more. It's her nemesis. It's her sexual market value. So be cognizant of that all the time. Again, you could drop little. In the old pickup days, again, it was like dropping an egg, which meant you would give an offhanded, left-handed comment about a girl. If she had beautiful eyes, you'd say something like, you have gorgeous eyes, too bad they're contact lenses. And that would kind of supposedly the theory was that would get her all upset, and she'd want to prove to you that she had beautiful eyes, and she was more than that, and then she would come into your frame and your universe. But, in truth, that only worked with very young girls most of the time. And dropping those kinds of negative things to a girl doesn't really work, especially with gorgeous women, because they've heard it. They've heard everything. They know that some guys just have this defense against beautiful women and want to take the girl down. So they'll say something really nasty, like, you're a bitch. Do you come in here, come into this club in this bitchy mood all the time? Are you not? You're really a narcissist, aren't you? You think your shit is the best. You don't want to do that, because that isn't going to get you anywhere. That's not being strong, masculine. That's being an asshole. So that's really not going to work. Understand, too, that as hot as a beautiful girl is, they're human. They vomit, they go to the bathroom, they get sick, all of that stuff. And if you can get that in your head when you're involved with them, you'll realize that, well, they're not perfect. So for me to think this is the most perfect woman in the world, this is the girl for me, I'll never find another one like her, that's called one-itis, where you think that girl is the only girl that will ever satisfy you. And if you should lose her, your world will be shattered. Well, there's the problem. You're making up a fantasy about this girl who is just human. So enjoy her beauty, of course. I mean, that's the best thing in the world. What's better than fucking a gorgeous girl? Enjoy it, but don't make her your end-all and be-all, because that's just setting yourself up for disappointment. Because after all, girls are really, just like every other girl. They just happen to have great DNA that made them gorgeous, and they got an edge. And in sex, they love sex, just like all girls. And they're as dirty as can be, and they will do the filthiest things imaginable. Again, go look at Pornhub or some other porn sites and see these hot, gorgeous girls doing ridiculously dirty things. And yeah, that's acting, and they're doing that for star power to be, um, adored on a wide basis. But regular beautiful girls will do this too. I saw this firsthand at the Playboy Mansion in the Grotto. I've seen some gorgeous girls doing really nasty things. uh, they didn't think twice about it. Thing you would, normally when you get so enamored with hot girls, you think that that's just not something they do. They're above that. Well, they're not. Okay, fellas, they're not. They will do it if they like you, and if they love you, they'll do even more. And they'll talk dirty too. If you ever hear them talking with their friends, they're talking about guys' dicks and balls and getting fucked in the ass and all that stuff. They talk about it all the time. And they actually like being dirty with the guy they're interested in because it gives them power, more power. Because normally their power lies in them just being beautiful. But when they're in bed and they're working sexually to make a guy come, then they feel power in that. They're saying, okay, this is my second boost of power. My first was me being beautiful. That got me here. Now this is the second charge where I can really get this guy. I can really show him how hot I am. And they can be some of the hottest, nastiest girls on the planet. Believe me. Be aware of sex workers, okay? Because sex work is just what it talks about. And I'm not talking so much about models, but models do fall into this category, nude models. Their job is to titillate, and they get paid money to titillate. And as you go down the list of sex workers, from model to burlesque dancer to stripper to porn star to hooker, it just gets worse and worse. So be real careful about the beauty that's involved with these girls. And some of them are absolutely stunning. But they're there to make money. So there's a big caveat there, especially if you're a guy who's inclined to be a romantic, and will just kind of shovel money into these girls just to think that, they would date you, or you'd have such a hot girl on your arm that you could show off to your friends and do all this stuff. But in most cases, a sex worker is a sex worker, and this is how she works men. She gets sugar daddies, and they get cars and apartments, and that's what they expect. So tread cautiously when you're dealing with sex workers. More things to consider to attract girls, and I'm not talking about sex workers now, let's get back to regular beautiful girls, is be a social animal. Be that guy who commands a room. Be the guy that when he steps into the room, the wallpapers peels off the walls, that everybody stops and looks at. Be that guy who is extremely appealing to everyone. Everyone wants to be near him and talk to him. He's gracious, he's funny, it helps to be that guy because women like that. They like guys who are very social because, again, it gives them this sense of security that this guy can handle anything that's thrown at him from anyone in the room. They want to really be in a position where they attract the guy who commands the room more quickly than the other women in the room. It becomes that competitive factor that they employ. They say, well, I'm hotter than all these other girls. I can get him because he's the one that stands out. He's the lion in this jungle here. So I'm going to go after him. And that will create this dynamic when you can be that guy. And I know many of you guys aren't inclined to be that way. You're not social animals, and that's part of what my coaching helps you do if you want to be, but you don't have to be, but it's always helpful. And for guys who like really young, beautiful girls, be concerned about the age gaps. I mean, any guy who is interested in a girl who is 15 years or more younger than him, you gotta be a little cautious. Um, Usually, a girl who's 20 and a guy's 35, that might work. But when you start pushing it up, a girl's 30 and a guy's 55, when you start pushing it up that much, she's probably got some daddy issues, or she's looking to be taken care of as a sugar baby or something like that. I mean, if you're just in it for sex and that's what you're going to get out of it, that's fine. But what I'm telling you is to guard your emotions when there's a huge age difference, because it's just natural. Now, even though they will say, "Oh, I'm more attracted to older men," well, usually, and I hate to say it, it's because these guys are so well off, they're rich or famous, and those two things do matter. They don't matter completely, but for model top types and girls who are really, really considered gorgeous, these guys have an edge up. But I will tell you, and I'm telling you from experience, I'm telling you, you guys can also benefit from this. Those guys may be attractive and they may get the girl for a while and they may be paying for the girl, but if they don't demonstrate sincerity, polarity, real masculine traits after a while, and they start treating these girls shitty because they know another one's around the corner, which in a way is what got them attracted to them in the first place. But that will only last for so long. And then those girls will gravitate towards somebody else. And when a beautiful girl has gone down this route a few times, she doesn't want to be hurt anymore. So she will look for a guy who's average, but has the masculine traits of knowing what he wants out of life and being secure and, not being fairly successful and being that guy who commands the room. They will be interested. And that could make for a better relationship in the long run. So also keep that in mind. So what's a hottie's weakness? They may seem invulnerable and like superhuman, but they do have weaknesses. And the biggest weakness is their age, because they know that expiration date is real and they know there are young 20-somethings coming right behind them. So they'll become constantly competitive with these girls. So whenever you're in a position where you can use a younger girl's abilities and a younger girl's beauty to offset the girl you're interested in is beauty, this will give you an advantage. And let me explain how that would work. Say you've met two girls and they're maybe similar age. Maybe one's 25, maybe one's 27. And you're talking to them and in conversation, you're interested in the 27-year-old. Then you'll say to the other girl, "How old are you?" And she'll say 25. And you go, "Well, you have an edge over a lot of other girls because 25 seems to be an age where, most men are interested in women." That will subliminally signal to the 27-year-old, she's younger than me and I'm already past that great age. I mean, that's not necessarily true, but that kind of banter will get them to think about who they are. Also, when you get into women who are in their 30s and 40s, and there are some gorgeous women in their 30s and 40s, even 50s, they're more security conscious. They want to know what a guy's all about. They want to know his FICO scores. They want to know how much he's earning, what his baggage is, how many divorces has he had. Because these girls, 30, 40, 50, they're not necessarily interested in men their own age. Some may, the 30-somethings might, but 40s and 50s, they're kind of not looking at guys in their 30s. So you have to take each one of those age groups individually and understand what's going on in their heads. And the girls who are older are more security conscious. They may like a guy a lot, and they may like an older guy a lot, but if he has certain negatives or some baggage that he's carrying that makes them insecure, it's not going to work because they can't rely on their beauty alone anymore. And here's a really big question. What makes them fall in love? What will get a gorgeous girl to be interested in you and in love with you as you are with them? Well, it's a combination of things, guys. Um, it, it, the basic attraction includes a series of engagements that include ignoring her beauty, positive tension, polarity that we talked about, uh, increasing amounts of interest as you go along, drama, mystery, and good dirty sex if the sex is happening. But you got to do all this with 10 times the amount of ferocity than normally. Because most of these beautiful women have seen it all, they've been there, they've had that stuff in spades. But when you do it with real purpose and passion, you have an advantage over most other guys. That's assuming they like you from the get-go. Again, also, your success with other girls, beautiful girls, models, actresses, that all signals to them that you're valuable on the market. So they like that a lot. Your overall package of feeling this way and adding all those little items that we just talked about together, it gives them, it trumps all other things, including good looks. Yes, good looks do matter, as we said, and being rich does matter. But when you have that package together, when you have that real confidence in yourself that you're doing what you really love to do in life and you're going to share it with them and they're going to be part of your adventure, that's a big deal. It's and here's something else that a lot of people don't realize, a lot of men don't realize, and that's vulnerability. Sometimes vulnerability is a very attractive thing. I actually should say a lot of times vulnerability is a big deal. And it's not being wimpy, like kind of I'm afraid, kind of vulnerable, I don't want to do that. No, not that kind. But it's the vulnerability of liking puppies or crying, because of a very emotional moment in life, or talking about, your dad in really warm and loving ways. I mean, those kinds of things that show that you have heart is like catnip to a lot of women, especially beautiful women, because they know instinctively that you're trying your best to impress them. And if you have the right stuff and it's impressing them in the right way, that's fine. But they still know it's a bit of a show that's going on initially. But when you show your vulnerability, that you could feel, and you have what I call seductive masculinity, that kind of masculinity that shows that you are deeper than every other guy around. They really love that. These gorgeous creatures just know that when they get a guy who's real and really owns his masculinity as well as his vulnerability, they fall like a rock. So let's talk about what gets them hot. How do they react sexually? Are they different from regular girls? Are they more promiscuous? Are they less promiscuous because they think they're beautiful? Well, that's a loaded question because it depends on each girl. But there are certain truths to what's going on here. And the biggest truth, they are as dirty as any other girl, sometimes dirtier because they can let themselves go. Just think about it. Their whole life is about, how do I look? How do I look? How do I look? So when they're in bed with a guy that they're real comfortable with, and they're able to not care about their hygiene and whether they shave their legs and how they're acting, when they can let loose, they really let loose. I mean, the trick, of course, is getting to them to that point of being comfortable, but that happens always before the sex. So you have to apply some of the stuff we've already talked about. But once you get into bed, these girls can be wild. But, guys often think, well, they're so beautiful, they must have had the hottest studs in the world, so that anything I do will be second nature. No, not at all. And if they really like you, they'll cut you slack, too. So think about that. And once again, they're never out of your league. They also talk dirty to them. I mean, that erotic talk is a big deal. Being able to tell them what to do. Again, it's that feeling of leadership that you're commanding the situation and you're leading this woman onto something. And that will turn her on. And in conjunction with them getting excited, they will get you excited, and there's an inverse reaction there. By them getting you excited, they feel power. So they're feeling sexual and they're feeling powerful all in one, and that's a great combination. So don't ever think that just because they're gorgeous, their sex life is either so much better or so much more experienced than others, because they may have been in a number of situations, and I've seen this before. I've heard a lot of playmates talk about, some of these very wealthy guys and celebrities they've been with who weren't that great and better. They were very apprehensive. They didn't want to touch them certain ways. They didn't want to ask them to turn over or bend over or lick their balls or do whatever they asked them to do. They didn't want to do it because they felt these girls were above that. When actually the girls were saying in confidence, man, I was horny as can be. I was ready to go. I would do anything for this guy, and he just couldn't relax. So they're just like every other girl. Relax with them sexually. Slap their face with your dick if you want to, because they will love it. So here's a little bonus information for you. All of the stuff we talked about so far is pretty spot on, and I'll tell you this because I've seen it happen millions of times at Playboy. Not millions, but a lot of times. I've seen beautiful, beautiful Playboy playmates and bunnies with rich, famous guys leave them for busboys and security guys. And as I said, they're never out of your league. And how that happened basically is because these guys didn't care that much about the girl's beauty. And here's another interesting little aspect. Although these women may say that the reason they like a particular guy and what attracts them to him and why they fall in love with him is maybe his humor or his ability to take them on adventures, they don't even consciously know what the things really are. I'll give you an example. One model that we dealt with was talking about how she loved this guy. She was also a dancer in a club. And she was saying how she loved this guy for his humor, because he was witty and very funny, and that was all great. And she kept saying, this is why I love him. He's so humorous. He's so fun. But meanwhile, when you dig down into it and figure out what it really was, he was a bouncer at the club. He was a construction worker. And he was in a relationship before they got together. So on a subconscious level, and this is a little more deeper, he was hitting all the buttons that hit all women and what they really want. And that's the security and the feeling of being special and earning love and having a guy in control. So as a bouncer, he demonstrated security. He demonstrated leadership because he would tell people to come in and out of the place. As a construction worker, he was strong, physically strong, and he was probably good looking, which helped a little bit. And he was in a relationship at the time, which gave her that impetus to compete because she wanted to earn his love. So those subconscious things were at work. And she probably didn't even realize it. She thought it was just his sense of humor, which helped, of course. But it gave her a sense of security and it filled the needs that women have to be in this drama, to be in a situation of tension. And the more beautiful they are, the more they will want to respond to those kinds of things. And I'll even give you another example, how these beautiful girls will dump a rich, famous guy for a regular guy. And that's because they may be bored with the rich and famous guy. Yeah, they'll take him for what he's worth, and they'll have fun, and they'll go travel the world, and he'll give them everything they want. But if they're not feeling that real security, that real masculinity in the guy, because most of the time these guys have so many girls that they just don't pay attention to the beautiful girl anymore, and she's just another trophy. So a regular guy who can get in there and give them this feeling of adventure and that they are going on this mission that's going to excite them and fill the void in them, they love that. And they will sometimes dump the guy who's got everything with a guy who's got real inner chops. What I've given you so far is basically the elevator pitch, the New York Minute, the Hotties 101 idea about beautiful women, what's in their heads, what they're thinking, how to get them in your life, how to have sex with them, how to do all that great stuff, because it's worth doing. And, beautiful women are, of course, more deep, and we are called shallow by liking girls but just by looks alone, but this is who we are. Again, this is what drives us. It's in our DNA. So why deny it? Any guy who says he would rather be with an ugly girl, to me, is pretty much lying. So to wrap it up, I guess the best way to look at this is, do not let beauty affect you. Inure yourself from beauty. Don't let it cloud your mind. Appreciate it, look for it, want it, enjoy it, but always keep in the back of your head that they're just regular girls who have been indoctrinated into this idea that because they're beautiful, they are worth so much more. But deep down inside, their insecurities are telling them, well, if it's not for my beauty, if I don't look just right today, if there's another girl who's more beautiful or younger than me, I'm in trouble. So the guy who can decipher that and cut through all of her magic, all of her mystical charisma that's jumping out at you and saying, yes, you shall possess me. And for not falling for that and putting them on a level playing field, you will have an advantage over many, many, many other guys. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Coach Robert at menagain.com, men-again.com. And I do offer coaching services on all levels. So I'd love to have you come over and see what it's all about. And don't forget, they're never out of your league. Beautiful women can be had, and you can have a beautiful time getting them. Okay, till next time. See you.